So, if you're from India, you would know that entire childhoods, or perhaps sometimes entire lives, are defined by the pursuit of trying to get into a premium institution like IIT. In fact, the IIT JEE exam has affected more lives than we know. This particular story, which is my story, is about how I, despite my best efforts, did not manage to crack. And in fact, I failed the IIT JEE exam. And I would say, despite that, or in spite of that, or perhaps because of that, things worked out even better. And that's what I'm going to share with you. So, hi everyone, welcome back to the CMO on Sabbatical series. This is my series, which is zero cost to consumer on the live life, work smart philosophy, which is essentially helped me retire from the corporate world at the age of 37. What I share is broadly under three buckets, which is how to maximize your career, because that's how you can earn money, earn capital. How do you then deploy said capital to make more capital, make more money? And lastly, how do you make smart choices? So all of these three things contribute to you potentially living the life you want and not the life that you have to. So this story, I did cover a little bit in my previous video about my three biggest failures, but I want to go into it in a little bit more detail. I want to talk about my journey, of course, as a student and as a teenager, and of course, class 10, class 12 in India. And I want to talk about, it was pretty tough. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And what I'm going to talk about essentially is for people who think that there is only one singular path to success. There could be multiple ways, and those ways could be things that you cannot even imagine. So in my particular story, there's two or three pieces of good news. One is that my parents were never pushy, academically speaking. So as a consequence of that, I would say I was a fairly ordinary student till maybe class 7, class 8. So for those of you who are not from India, class 7, class 8 would be age 12, 13. In class 9, which is 2 years before the 10th standard exams, again, for those not from India, O-level equivalent. So class 9, somehow, I don't know, maybe I just felt it was maybe just a little bit more self-driven. I started getting much better at academics. And there was a sudden rise, and it kind of culminated in me actually topping my school in Rajkot in India. Not only topping my school, but topping my state in the exams. Now, here's the thing. When you do well academically in India, the assumption is that you are going to try to go for one of those, difficult, prestigious options. Try to get into IIT, try to get into the top law school, try to become a top doctor, get into AIMS or something. I had no interest in law or medicine, so it was rather assumed that I would get into or try to get into IIT because, of course, I was doing well academically. Never mind that I had little interest in science. I was very interested more in, say, humanities, say, English, literature. I've been a writer since I was about 11 years old. Been also a painter. Those were my interests. I always loved math, but math, I don't think you don't have to become an engineer because you're good at math. But it was because I did so well academically that it felt like a shame, and we had a lot of discussions about this. At that time in India, 25 years ago, perhaps 22 years ago. 22 years ago. No, yeah, 22 years ago. Sorry, my math, not that good actually. It would assume that strong students go for science and weak students go for arts. I wanted to go for arts. I was not a weak student, but it was just kind of a compulsion. And I had a lot of discussion with my parents on this. And actually, I wanted to become a car designer. And so the compromise that we came to was that I should try to become an engineer. And once I become an engineer, then I can always go and do a master's in car design. That was the thing. So then, hence, that is how becoming an engineer or getting into IIT became part of the plan. I have to say that signing up to try to get into IIT wasn't something it wasn't something like for other people. They've been doing tuition since they were like 10 years old. It wasn't on my radar, but once it was decided, then we had to go all in. So what happened is at that particular point in time, my father was transferred to Salem in Tamil Nadu. But there was no good enough school there as judged by us in terms of the purpose of trying to get into IIT. This is, of course, what we know. So we had to go to Bangalore, live in Bangalore where my father was in Salem. And luckily, because of my marks and everything, I got into what I call a nerd factory, which is National Public School, Bangalore. There are a few branches now. At that time, there were two. There's Rajaji Nagar and there was Indira Nagar. Rajaji Nagar was a little bit more nerdy. Of course, that's where I went. And then, my God, that's when life completely changed. If I thought I had a life till 10th standard, which I did because I had time to do everything that I wanted. Of course, board exams were a different case. I had to study a lot those particular months. But the moment I got into National Public School and together with it into IIT coaching, which happened in the school after class, life just disappeared. It was school till afternoon, then coaching till evening, then studying till night, every single day. On the weekends, it was coaching for 2 days, then studying at night. So imagine 7 days a week only studying, no exercise, nothing. You may think you may get a break in the holidays. No break in the holidays. Same thing, study, study, study. We had coaching during the holidays. There was also this pressure because the school wanted us to do well in CBSE, but IIT coaching was preparing us for IIT, which was slightly different in the syllabus. And also, I was terrible compared to the group of people that I was next to. I talked about this, that I had gone from being top of my school, and this particular place, National Public School, is like the creme de la creme. So I was barely middling. So as you can imagine, this was a pretty terrible period. A lot of sacrifice from everyone's part. My part in terms of time, my parents' part in terms of splitting the family to be located in two different locations, all for this pursuit of trying to get into IIT for the future. It was crazy. Looking back at it, every time there's a difficult time like when I was in my corporate career, there was a difficult time in terms of work or whatever. Or even university was easy, but let's just say corporate career, because getting to a reasonably high position in a corporate career, you do have a lot of pressure. But every time I had that pressure, I always remembered that 11th and 12th standard. And honestly, as I told many colleagues, I don't think this pressure feels anything compared to what the pressure felt like in 11th and 12th. So, often people used to ask me, why so calm? There's so much, shit has hit the fan. I don't know, we have not missed our targets, whatever it might be. Many reasons for there to be tension in corporate world. I felt like it was nothing compared to the tension I felt in 11th and 12th. So imagine doing that for 2 years, studying hard. Never studied like that in my life. Then we finally became time to go do the exams. And remember, I don't know what the system is now, but at that point in time, we had to do IIT Screening and IIT Mains, and you had to get through screening. And I wrote screening, and it was just not a good day, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I failed screening. So forget about failing IIT JEE Mains. I failed screening after 2 years of sacrificing everything, after being such a good student. I mean, it was a crazy, devastating blow, right? And there are many approaches. Some people, if they fail screening, fail IIT once, they drop a year. Maybe they go to quota. Trust me, all of these options were thought of because it was that dramatic. But the good thing that happened from this, and when I reflect back on the last 20 years, because it has been 20 years since I wrote, it has been exactly 20 years. April, oh my God, almost to the day. Today's 24th April 2024. I think it was about 24th or 23rd April 2004 that I wrote the IIT screening exam. And what I have realized in the last 20 years is that failing this exam has been the best thing that happened to me. It's not me saying it as, consolation prize, etc. But I think if I think about the path that I was sent down, and I'll talk 2 or 3 things about that path, knowing what I know about myself at this point in time, I think with the life that, and of course, who knows what possibilities were there in that life, but just my sitting where I am sitting, the life that awaited with that particular bend versus on this particular bend, I think this side was much better. So a few things. One is, if I had ever managed to get through the IIT, I don't think I would have gotten a good rank. So I would have probably gotten a middling or a really low rank. I know where my IQ lies in the whole scheme of things. It's okay. That's where I am. I'm not the kind of person who would get a top 1,000 rank. I don't have that high level of intelligence. That's okay. So I would probably have gotten some course that I would have had no interest in. I'm sorry to pick on a simple course. I'm not saying it's a bad course. It's just my interest. Like say materials or environmental engineering in one of the so-called lesser IITs. Again, I'm not trying to put anything down. I'm just talking in the way different choices and different courses and different institutions are evaluated back in 2004. So I'd have gone into that. Maybe I would have gotten into something like a double degree, because the double degrees are less sought after. So I'd have to spend like 5-6 years doing both bachelor's and master's. And after that, goodness knows what was next. Because of course today India is really, really shining. Ironically, the slogan back in 2004 was India shining, but keeping that aside, at that particular point in time, I don't think the opportunities that I've gotten in India itself would be similar to what I got here in Singapore when I graduated just as an engineer in 2008. So that's one thing. I may have gone to the US, but when you think of the US has always been this beacon. But of late, I would say in the last 10 years or so, the US has become a lot less attractive as an emigration location, both in terms of what you can get, also in terms of how difficult it has become, particularly for someone from India, because people from India are like excess, right? So we are oversubscribed in every particular part of the thing. So I would have probably had potentially a middling path, perhaps a technical path, because that would be an engineer. And all my friends who have gone to the US after doing engineering, they've all been on a technical path. They've all, even some of them are now working in the Googles or whatever, but they've all been computer engineers on a technical path. As I talked about myself, I had no interest in engineering. I had no interest in technical path. I was only doing engineering to become a car designer. So for me, when I went to Singapore, it opened up my eyes, because there was the engineering path, but there were so many non-engineering options available to engineering grads. I think that is the biggest game changer. That is what allowed me to get into something that fit me really well, ironically speaking, which was marketing and brand management, because I've never thought that I'm going to become a marketer, but as it turns out, a lot of the reasons that I wanted to become a car designer, of course, there's the drawing and the styling of the car itself, but there's a lot of the decision making on the proposition, on understanding the consumer, on understanding what features, basically putting together a proposition. That is marketing, actually. It's nothing to do with design. And that's what a car designer told me when I met them in Singapore. There was a Mercedes event. I met a car designer. He told me, based on what you are describing, you need to get into marketing. Singapore gave me that opportunity. If I had gone to India, for example, to get to the job that I got to, which was at that particular point in time, as assistant brand manager, now it's called brand manager, entry-level job in PNG. That particular point in time, I'd have to finish my IIT, then I have to go and write IIM, another 2 years. And then maybe I get this job. So maybe it was like a double degree plus another MBA. Maybe I got this job after 7 years or something. I got this job 4 years after 4 years after being 18, rather. I graduated as just a graduate, and then I got the job. So there was time saved. And then, of course, being located in the regional headquarters, which is in Singapore, versus being located in a country organization is very different. Regional headquarters is very cosmopolitan, a lot more opportunities. That gave me the opportunity to work not only in India, which is where I started working. So I was in the regional headquarters working on the Indian market. But then I worked in everything from Japan, Australia, global markets, everything. That would not have happened that easily even if I'd gotten to that job after doing, say, 5-6 years of some IIT degree, plus I had managed to get into IIM. There's so many ifs and buts. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're probably preparing for any of the competitive exams right now, they are important, but they are not the end of the world. So be aware of that. Do your best, but life can take many different turns, and there are things that can happen in the world that you cannot anticipate. There is so much disruption going on in general since the internet now, of course, with AI and everything, that you do not know which way the world is going to go. You do not know how suddenly your skills may become relevant or irrelevant. So the point is, take your exams seriously, take academics seriously, but do not make that the end all of your life to the extent of negatively impacting everything else. And if you're preparing for IIT, or if you prepared for IIT and you didn't get in, it's okay. Life will still go on. You probably may still end up doing better, even better than you may have done with that. All right, I hope this was interesting. I'll be back with the next video. Take care.